welcome to my channel. My name is Martine, and if you are new here, I do videos on Vedic astrology mainly, but also with some tropical insights. And I focus on both relationship and natal astrology. And if you like this content and you would like to see similar videos from me, don't forget to like, subscribe to my channel, click on the notifications bell if you want to be notified when I will post a new video. And also, if you're interested in a private consultation, I do consultations on a wide variety of topics. You can check out the video description. I will leave my contact information there, and you can email me for a full list of reading options with prices and further details. And also, I have started a membership section on this channel. I can give you a short introduction with respect to the memberships now, but you can also click on the join button under any of my videos to get more information about the pricing, because the pricing does depend on your local currency. All right, so mainly what the membership options entail is that you will get one extra video per membership level per month. So the first level, Stargazer, implies one extra video per month. The second level, Astro-Hitchhiker, implies 2 extra videos per month that are members only. And the last level, which is Galaxy Explorer, implies 3 extra videos per month for this membership level. So basically each level has access to the video from the previous level. Once I start to get more members, and based on the feedback and community only requests and posts, I might increase the number of videos that I do every month. But right now I will be doing 1 extra video per month for each level. And of course, you can see the playlists of the videos that I have done so far also in the video description if you want to check it out to get more details. And in addition to the videos, you will also have priority to getting your comments replied to by me. And you will also, per level 1, you get some personalized stickers. Well, more personalized than the regular stickers. I mean emojis. And you will also have access to community-only posts and community-only polls. All right, so this is pretty much the membership section. And in addition to that, I also have a tarot channel, and I do offer tarot readings. So if you want to check out my tarot channel, you can also see that in the video description, as well as in the pinned comment underneath each of my videos. So yeah, if you're interested in tarot, maybe watch the videos, maybe subscribe if you're, if you like them, if they are on your frequency and they match you, then yes, please subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. All right, so getting straight into the topic of the video, as I have said, well, I have done a poll more recently, and I've asked you which famous couple you would like to see a relationship analysis for, or as it is called in astrology, a synastry analysis. Now, sometimes I use the word synastry for just chart comparisons, but technically synastry also involves the composite chart analysis. Now, it depends. Like, some people think of the composite chart analysis as separate from synastry. I don't know. I've seen this term being used, interchangeably. But in any case, so I'm going to be looking as usual, because I have done several readings like this for famous couples. And again, I will be linking the playlist in the video description so you can check out the other compatibility analysis as well. Analysis, whatever the plural is. Anyway, so yes, as usual, I will be looking at chart interaspects. I will be looking at house overlays and composite chart analysis. And I'm also going to be looking at some specifically Vedic techniques. All right. So this is just as an introduction for what you're going to hear about in this video. So I'm going to get, short introduction also with respect to the couple. I have to admit that it's not like I know everything about this couple. I do know who Justin Bieber is, and I have heard of Hailey Baldwin. I knew that, they were married. But I have also tried to do a little bit of research for this video, however, not extensively, because really, I mean, I just did a little bit of research to kind of get, the image of what the gossip is, what's going on, why are they even relevant, basically. I know that she is the daughter of a famous actor, I think Stephen Baldwin, and whatever. He is obviously a very famous international singer. He became famous by posting on YouTube and then turned into like this huge star. And he's Canadian, yes, I know that. And yeah, he was also famously involved with Selena Gomez, who was another famous singer. So with some of the theories, though, that I wanted to point out that maybe people should have in view while listening to this analysis, one of them is the fact that there are rumors now that basically Justin Bieber only married Hailey Bieber because he needed to stay in the US or something about like some shady legal stuff, like he was basically charged with something like driving under the influence or a variety of misdemeanors. So he was basically potentially threatened by deportation. This is the rumor. And that he basically was seeking to get citizenship, because if you are married to an American citizen for like at least 5 years, and basically you automatically can get citizenship, or I don't even know exactly, or you can apply for citizenship, something like that. So there are a lot of, one of the biggest rumors that is going on about this couple that basically now are said to be getting a divorce. I don't know if they have formally announced. I think, yeah, one of them has formally announced that they're separating. And apparently the rumor is that basically they're separating. They have just announced that they're separating in September, basically exactly 5 years after they have gotten married. And also the marriage in itself was kind of weird. There were a lot of instances that showed Justin Bieber didn't really seem to have much consideration for his wife, didn't seem to pay too much attention towards his wife and stuff like that. I don't know. There's like, really weird rumors going on. So I'm really curious, actually. I haven't looked at their synastry beforehand, so I will be reading this whole thing as is, live, so to speak, as I'm recording this. So it's going to be interesting for me as well to see what is actually going on here. All right, so I'm going to start with the chart overlays. So basically, you're going to be seeing this on the screen as well. Again, I have used astro.com for convenience because it's a free tool and pretty much everyone can use it. So I've also done a video on how you can use it as well. And I have been using it for like decades. For me personally, I feel just as comfortable looking at Indian style charts, just as I feel comfortable looking at tropical because I have a background in tropical. I also think that this style is more, let's say, easy for people who have a tropical astrology background, but bear in mind that I use the sidereal zodiac coupled with the whole sign house system. So it's still the Vedic system, it's just a different representation. All right. So let's get straight into it. So what you see on the chart first and foremost is Hailey Bieber's planetary placements over Justin Bieber's planetary placements. So, so one of the first things that really stands out to me is that he himself has Rahu conjunct ascendant. So Rahu in the first house, pretty tightly conjunct to the ascendant. This explains why he already has a tendency to have problems in relationships, because this shows this lifetime is about developing himself. It's about, to some extent at least, becoming really self-absorbed and learning to be on his own without focusing too much on marriage or romantic partners in general. And then what I also see is that her sun and her Mercury is conjunct this Rahu. So this is kind of like already potentially a source of incompatibility, to put it like this, or let's say maybe not incompatibility, but a potential source of conflict. Because as I have shown in a video where I talked about the Rahu Sun conjunction and Ketu Sun conjunctions, I will be linking that video as well as any other related video in the video description. I have talked about in that video that when the man's Rahu is conjunct the woman's sun, it shows that she will tend to have an inflated ego, basically. So basically, Rahu exaggerates or emphasizes any energy that it touches in the other person's chart. And the sun is very masculine. You know, the sun is all about me, 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 and shining bright and, you know, getting attention. So this already kind of seems to explain the dynamics that you see between them, because the photos that I've seen between them, it almost seems like he's annoyed because he has to kind of play second fiddle, or like he's almost annoyed by the fact that she's getting attention. At least this was my impression. Again, I haven't extensively studied their relationship, but just based on some photos that I've seen and some videos and some, you know, I've watched like 2 or 3 gossip videos about them, quote unquote gossip. So that was my impression. Like one of them, including that I've seen, that talked about their divorce announcement, where they were criticizing the fact that he showed up for some big event of hers dressed up in like sweatpants and looking like he really didn't care to put enough effort into his presentation. And meanwhile, she was looking all elegant and, you know, beautiful because it was some kind of, I think, an opening of her clothing line or jewelry line or something like that. I don't remember. So this aspect would really explain why he started to feel maybe frustrated with the fact that she was getting too much attention. Because again, in this situation, as I have mentioned also in that video, it's not necessarily true that this aspect in itself is always a deal breaker, but according to the, you know, social expectations of the world that are still very much male-centric, most guys will not appreciate having a woman who outshines them, who tends to have a bigger ego, or who really starts to become too independent to the point where she's taking the lead of the relationship, you know. And on the other hand, it might also be that many women don't like that dynamic either, right? So even for the woman in this situation, it could be that she doesn't like to be the one who's constantly wearing the pants and, you know, has to make the decisions. And this is often the kind of situations that they will find themselves in if they have this aspect in synastry. Now, when it comes to her, this could also be that maybe for her, this relationship was just a huge ego boost, you know, because this is the sun person's perspective on this relationship, right? That this Rahu person who has their Rahu conjunct their sun is making them feel more important and, you know, enhancing recognition. Let's not forget that the sun is also recognition. And again, this would also match for her. I mean, considering the fact that he was definitely way more famous, I would say, at least according to what I know, than she was. So I think this relationship has probably given her more visibility, and maybe as a result of that, she started getting a big head. All right, so this is one thing. Now, they also have the ascendant, by the way. They also have ascendant conjunct. So they also have her ascendant conjunct his Rahu, which again shows a kind of fatedness connected to this relationship. So that would definitely add to the attraction, right? So it would show this kind of strong compulsive attraction, like somehow they were meant to find each other and to have a relationship. And this would have been felt on both sides. And then they also have the Mercury conjunct. So her Mercury is conjunct his Rahu and his ascendant, which is a great sign of compatibility, actually. And Mercury conjunct Rahu would also somehow mean that he somehow boosted her business acumen or her business skills, her ability to market herself, to become more intelligent, maybe about how to think and how to see the world in general, but also about how to network maybe and how to market herself. That would definitely explain maybe. So again, it looks, just based on these very small, this very small segment of the synastry, it seems like he really brought a lot to the table for her, basically, so far. So she was getting benefits from this relationship, definitely on a material plane. Another thing that I notice is, well, they do have the Moon-Venus conjunction in synastry, which is a very romantic aspect to have. This would definitely have added to the romance, to the mutual affection. I actually have done a separate video again about this particular aspect in synastry, so I will be linking that in the video description as well, if you want to get an in-depth psychological explanation of how this works. So yes, this would definitely lead to a lot of understanding, a lot of affection, also having the Venus-Jupiter conjunction as well, because he has the Moon-Jupiter conjunction and Venus is conjoined this. So the Jupiter-Venus conjunction would have added to, again, an increase in social interactions for the both of them. So both of their social circles would have increased as a result of this relationship. This would also show that, again, he brought her more opportunities of getting finances. And again, this is a boost of self-esteem, because Venus, especially for a woman, this shows her ability to feel attractive. It also shows the self-esteem of a person in general, irrespective of gender. So him having his Moon and his Jupiter conjunct her Venus, again, this shows that for her, this seemed like a very healing, kind of contact, at least at first, right? This would have turned into a big, boost of self-esteem, of her feeling, wanted and attractive and all this stuff. Another thing, let me see, is right, so her Mars is falling into his 10th house. This one is interesting. So this can be interpreted in two separate ways. So it's not just that her Mars is falling in his 10th house, but it's also opposite his Mars, his Saturn, his Sun, and his Venus. Now, again, this is a huge aspect that, again, would have led to some conflict. It's interesting because you have both some good aspects to this, little cluster of aspects, but also a lot of negatives. Again, one big negative that I see is you have Mars opposite the Sun and Saturn. I would say this is a huge negative aspect, a double negative aspect to have in synastry. I have done separate, I'm pretty sure, I don't know, I've done for both of these, I've done separate videos, so I will be linking those in the video description. For Sun Mars and Sun Mars or Mars Sun, I have done a separate video where I went in depth with the different aspects, why the negative aspects are bad and all this stuff, so I will be linking those in the video description. I've also done a video on the Mars Saturn and why it's one of the most complicated, potentially challenging aspects in synastry, whether it's found in the composite chart or in inter aspects. So, in this situation, as I have mentioned, my impression is that he tried to control her. Or maybe initially when they started getting together, he felt like he could really control her because he is the one who has the Saturn and she is the one who is the Mars. And as I have mentioned in that video as well, especially in this particular traditional gender role, not traditional gender role, but, between a man and a woman, when the woman is the Mars, it's like the man who tends to be more threatened somehow and wants to control this other person, because, the Mars is your willpower, it's your ambition, your assertiveness. So when you have Saturn opposite Mars, it shows there's a huge conflict here where the Mars person basically makes the Saturn person feel insecure and, stimulates their fears and their desire. And again, fears and control go hand in hand, right? So the more you fear, let's say, losing a person, or generally with this aspect in synastry, again, especially when the woman is the Mars, the man tends to fear Either that she will overpower him, emasculate him, or sometimes directly it's because he's afraid that he's going to lose her. Because Mars, again, is that fighting spirit, that assertiveness. It's also kind of the aggressive part of a person's sensuality, so to speak. So, for a woman, again, this would have made him feel like she was all over the place, like just going after what she wanted, and that on some level, this made him feel smaller and less masculine. And that in turn would have made him want to control her even more somehow. And as I have also mentioned in that video where I went more in detail about this particular aspect, it tends to sometimes show abuse because, and this could be all kinds of abuse, because again, the Saturn person is going to try to control the Mars person, and that could take all different kinds of, that could take any kind of form, verbal abuse, trying to demean the Mars person. It could be even small things, like just as you have seen in the example where he didn't dress up nicely for her premiere or whatever. It could be as small as that, just not showing support or kind of scoffing at every little project that the Mars person wants to pursue, like not being supportive or even being low-key critical and passive-aggressive, And in turn, this turns the Mars person into a more aggressive mode and more irritated mode. And that in turn can make the Mars person, argumentative and angry and which would make the Mars person even more independent and even more aggressive, so it turns into this like really annoying, frustrating tug of war between two people. It's really bad, really. And again, coupled with the fact that he has his Rahu conjunct her sun, this would also, make a lot of sense in explaining the weird microaggressions and interactions that have been captured of these two, on camera. And another one, again, equally challenging is the Mars opposite Sun. So her Mars is opposite his Sun. Again, let's not forget that the Sun is the king archetype, right? And again, you have to take into account also the gender roles here. Because, like I said, in most traditionalist environments, and I don't know, Justin Bieber to me doesn't seem like a very non-traditional person. Just by looking at his horoscope, actually, you might think that this is a bit weird. But looking at his horoscope, he has Saturn conjunct Sun, conjunct Venus, conjunct Mars. This is a very Saturnian person. I would not be surprised if his views would be very traditional about, who's supposed to wear the pants in the relationship, at least. Maybe not with respect to everything else in life. But this would explain also why this woman, Hailey, would be particularly challenging to his ego, right? So a woman who has her Mars square the man's Sun, this shows that she's kind of like a general that disobeys the king on a regular basis. Like, he would want her to do this and whatever, and they would never agree on anything, and this kind of aspect, again, taking into account the gender roles, would make a man feel disrespected, because the woman is constantly, so let's say he comes up with initiatives or he wants to delegate different things to her, but she doesn't agree with them. So she's constantly having a mind of her own, an initiative of her own. So she's too assertive. That's another one. So, and there's too much energy, too much independence, right? This would again explain a lot with respect to their interactions. And third in line would be the Mars opposition. Now, this is not the worst one to have, but again, having in view that it's already backed up by a series of challenging synastry aspects, it would be more likely that this takes the negative expression, which is, again, adding, insult to injury. It's creating more, conflict with respect to the direction of the relationship, with respect to who holds the reins of the relationship. This also just shows a fundamental incompatibility with respect to their physical energy, their biorhythms, even when you look at the Mars. This would also show incompatibility also with the Venus, because he has Mars-Venus conjunct and it's opposite her Mars. While this would also serve to lead to a certain amount of attraction, this would also lead to a lot of conflict, right? Because again, you have this fundamental incompatibility between energies. And she's the one who actually comes across as more extroverted here because her Mars is in Leo, whereas he has this cluster of planets that are very Saturnian. So he has like 4 planets conjunct in Aquarius and Saturn. By the way, this also serves my point that I made in the Fame video. I don't know if I mentioned Justin Bieber in that video, but now that I see his horoscope, I definitely see it. I should have mentioned him. I don't remember if I did. But in any case, I'm going to link that video also in the video description if you want to see more details about it. But I talked about how Saturnians in today's world are particularly favored with respect to reaching a high level of fame because they're falling in line with the collective subconscious, basically, and what the world is heading towards. It is the age of Aquarius after all. I mean, another thing that I see is, again, I have mentioned this concept in another video where I talked about the distance between moon signs, placements, in the horoscope of a man versus the horoscope of a woman. And again, this is particularly when it comes to, biological male to female relationships, that you want to have the distance between the man's moon to the woman's moon be shorter than the other way around. Because, this leads to the man having an intuitive understanding of the woman's needs, basically. And this is especially important because it's usually women who struggle to feel understood and struggle to, get their needs met in relationships. And what you see here is that his moon is in 0 degrees Libra and her moon is in 5 degrees Aries. So this means that from his moon to her moon, there's more than 180 degrees difference. So if you would have seen 180 degrees difference, you would have had his moon in 0 degrees Libra and her moon in 0 degrees Aries. But it's more than that. It's a little over that, all right? Now, 180 degrees difference would have been the limit to this rule, basically. Ideally, you want to have less than 120 degrees difference, meaning maximum of 4 signs from the man's moon to the woman's moon. Because if it crosses that barrier, basically the more, the further away the woman's moon is by comparison to the man's moon, the more difficult it will be for him to anticipate the woman's needs, which translates into the woman will have to spend a lot of time explaining herself, and or she will actually feel like she's the one who has a better intuitive understanding of his needs, and she's always ready to meet his needs, but she is not being taken care of properly, which results oftentimes into women feeling like they have to baby their partners, which is a huge turnoff for heterosexual women. So this is a bad one, really, when it comes to synastry, when it comes to relationships. And on top of that, they also don't have compatible yoni placements, but I will be getting more into this, I guess, towards the end when I get to the traditional Vedic compatibility analysis. But he has his moon in Chitra, she has her moon in Ashwini nakshatras. So his yoni is tiger, her yoni is horse. This is not a compatible mix, really, with respect to the instinctive sides of these two people's energies, right? So this translates also into challenges when it comes to intimacy, but it's challenges on every plane. Basically, it just shows there's not an easy flow of energy between them. It's not easy for them to make each other, to make themselves understood in the relationship, to understand each other, and to get their needs met, right? Because the moon is really important when it comes to getting your needs met in relationships or otherwise. Although it's really funny also because they do have all of these positive. I mean, they have this moon Venus conjunction, they have this Venus Jupiter conjunction, and they also have, so they have mutual, so her Venus conjunct his Jupiter and her moon conjunct his Jupiter as well. So there are strong signs of compatibility, and yet when you actually more closely analyze the moon placements, then you don't actually see the same level of like deep understanding, you know? So that's pretty much the main things that I can see with respect to the first overlay. So I'm going to look also a little bit from the other perspective, so to see his placements on her chart, basically. So what you are going to see now on the screen is Justin Bieber's placements with the red, and Hailey Bieber's placements are with the blue in the inside of the chart, just to see if I see any extra aspect, although technically there shouldn't be any difference. It's just that looking at it from a different perspective, you might see some extra stuff. So with respect to aspects, I don't really see much extra, but what I do see, of course, is the placements of his planets over her houses. And actually, I should have said this also from the other way around. They do have the same ascendant, as I have said. So they actually stimulate each other's 12th house, which is interesting. So there's an element of secrecy with respect to their synastry. I don't know, there were rumors, for instance, that their relationship started as an affair. I actually read that somewhere, that he was still involved with his ex, Selena Gomez, and that the reason their relationship ended maybe was because there was an affair going on with this current wife, Hailey. I don't know if that's true, to which extent it is true, obviously, but this synastry placement of 12th house overlays would tend to suggest that, because the 12th house shows secret affairs, you know, stuff that is being kept behind doors. So yeah, that could be a thing. Another thing is that his planets of Mars, Saturn, Sun, Venus are falling in her 4th house, you know, which is really interesting, because like 4th house is a very emotional energy. Basically, this is the mother archetype. So again, I don't want to get all Freudian here, but I wouldn't be surprised if somehow this relationship was bringing up unresolved childhood issues with respect to the father figure and the mother figure, actually, because you could have had both sides here. Also, these planets falling in the 4th house, they're also aspecting the 10th. So the 4th is the house of the mother, and the 10th is the house of the father. So you could have had both of these happening. Another thing, though, is that his Saturn is but is falling in her 4th house. So this is actually a pretty emotionally taxing placement. You know, it's showing that somehow his presence is restrictive towards her emotionally. It's kind of similar to having someone Saturn on your moon, for instance. You know, it's a pretty harsh and cold energy falling on your most sensitive, vulnerable side, you know, of your psyche, the needy part of you. So this would have led to, again, some heaviness in the relationship as well. Again, we see that, his Rahu falling in her 1st house would have further emphasized already the natural meaning of the Rahu Sun conjunction, as I have explained it. So that she was definitely getting an ego boost, heightened recognition, especially since this conjunction falls in her 1st house, you know. But this would have been mutual, actually, because again, on the other hand, she has her son in his 1st house, so there's like a mutual recognition going on. But especially for her, she's getting that extra ego boost, you know, because again, the sun is the ego, it's the recognition, the fame, and it's also, again, the more masculine side of the person's psyche. So I think really, mostly, this is, you know, I hate to sound arrogant and all that, but I do feel like maybe I just worked them out pretty quickly, because looking at his horoscope, I'm just seeing someone who's probably more traditional than he likes to portray himself, you know. And I think what happened was that, you know, she was probably getting too independent, too aggressive for his taste, too self-focused, you know. Especially since, again, let's not forget, he also natally has a Rahu in his 1st house, which shows that he wants to be basically all about me. on top of having Saturn conjunct Mars, Saturn conjunct the Sun and Venus, which again would show that he probably is a pretty traditional person and would probably want traditional gender roles in a relationship. Another interesting thing, though, just looking at his natal horoscope and trying to psychoanalyze him a little bit, is that he has Saturn conjunct Venus. So this could also somehow show that he likes women who are, let's say, humble, because again, Saturn is the energy of the servant. Obviously, this could be interpreted in a number of ways. This can also show that he's attracted to very mature women, career women, let me put it like that. And she would, at least on the surface, would have, seemed to match this image, someone, also aesthetically, and let's not forget that Venus conjunct Saturn aesthetically means you're attracted to someone who is, lean and, slim, has good bone structure, all that. So aesthetically, she seems to fit that ideal. But he would probably have wanted, a partner or a spouse who is very subservient. This is my impression. And last but not least, actually, another thing that suggests this is that he has Moon as Darakaraka, if you look at his planetary placements there. So the Moon is the planet with the lowest degree, which means, again, men with Moon as Darakaraka would definitely prefer a more traditional relationship. But although, ironically, I also think that's probably the reason why he was drawn to her in the first place, because they have this mutual moon energy interactions happening. So he has his moon conjunct her Venus and opposite her moon. So this would show that, he probably felt like he was getting at least some of his emotional needs met, at least, probably felt like she was understanding and nurturing and feminine. This is kind of Freudian and messed up, but like maybe he saw her as some kind of a mother figure or something. And look, this is actually not surprising, because like if you look at most people who never analyze their horoscopes or have never analyzed themselves through any kind of self-awareness tool, psychology or anything, they tend to play out unresolved childhood issues. And this synastry analysis here doesn't seem to make an exception. Again, I could be going off on a limb. Maybe that's not what actually happened, but just looking at these interactions, I'm pretty sure there was some mommy-daddy issues going on both sides. Actually, looking at it again, it gets even more interesting, because her moon is also her Darakaraka. So she has moon in 5 degrees, 39 minutes, 10 degrees of, sorry, is it 39 minutes? Yeah. And 10 seconds. Yeah. Aries. And that is the planet with the lowest degree in her chart. So for each of them, moon is the Darakaraka, which already right off the bat, I think would be a sign of incompatibility. Again, I haven't read this anywhere, but I just haven't come across relationships where people have exactly the same Darakaraka and it turns out well. Because again, I have talked about Darakaraka, and I'm pretty sure, I've gone through each planet as Darakaraka. Again, I'm going to be linking that playlist in the video description if you want to check it out. But I have talked about, especially Moon as Darakaraka is a really tricky one, because it's a very vulnerable, needy kind of Darakaraka. And again, the Darakaraka shows the side of you that is the most repressed, that you tend to disown, and you expect the partner to fulfill in your life, right? So this is not good. If you have the same Darakaraka as your partner, you're basically disowning the same kind of energy and expecting it from your partner. So you're both kind of like dying of thirst and expecting the other person to bring the water, but you're both in the desert, like in the middle of nowhere, none of you has water, and you're both dying of thirst. It's kind of like the best way that I can explain it. And again, this would also again explain why they felt drawn to one another, because there's a lot of healing aspects involving the moon, at least at first glance. You have Jupiter involved, you have Venus involved. So these are two people who, in each of their ways, has been emotionally starved. Maybe they had absent mother figures, or they didn't get enough affection when they were growing up. So they were kind of looking to get that deep emotional need met, of being taken care of. Like, and so basically, in a weird, messed up way, they were each waiting for the other person to take on the parent role. It's really messed up, but this is really what I see here. So she would have wanted someone to protect him. And I think, if anything, she was the one who probably saw him as more of a good partner, because, she's the one who gets the ego boost. So she has her sun, conjunct his Rahu. So I think maybe to some extent she thought, oh, this is someone who's going to heal my self-esteem. He has also his Jupiter conjunct her Venus, his moon conjunct her Venus. So again, this is someone who boosted her self-esteem, gave her recognition, made her feel pretty, gave her affection, whatnot. And probably, she thought, okay, I'm going to get my emotional needs met from this person. And that turned out not to be the case, because, again, she was the one who has the moon. So the distance thing is not working out. So what happened over time is probably she felt like she was the one who was playing the mother figure, and she was starting to become increasingly more frustrated with that. This is really interesting, but at the same time, really messed up. I also have to say here, as much as people would want to think that, I think, at least based on the rhetoric that I've heard and the photos I've seen of them, the recordings I've seen, I think most people want to see Hailey as a victim, and I'm not trying to say that she's not. Again, I haven't even studied the topic enough. Obviously not of severe abuse, but I would say probably at least some amount of neglect going on. But I also can't help but look at her horoscope and see that she has moon opposite Venus, which would also make her very self-absorbed emotionally and probably much more focused on getting her own needs met than, caring for another person. And so I think the tragedy here is that they probably, both of them, like I said, were starving people, hoping for the other person to bring the water into the relationship or bring the food in the relationship. You know what I'm talking about. All right, so this is pretty much what I get from the synastry overlays. I'm going to look at the composite chart analysis. So let's see if I can get more insights into the composite chart from the composite chart. Speaking of Moon Venus, before I get into it though, I have also done a video about Moon Venus aspects in the natal chart, and how it could bring potential issues and in relationships. So I will be linking that in the video description as well, for those of you who are curious to dig more in depth. So looking at the composite chart, what stands out to me here are some positive aspects, right? So we have Sun conjunct Venus, Sun conjunct Mercury. So these are great aspects to have with respect to compatibility. There would have been a lot of, mutual affection, a lot of good communication, which is great. I have talked about Sun conjunct Mercury in synastry, especially in the composite chart, in a separate video, so I will be linking that. So again, there would have been that initial sense of, friendship, of openness, of they can talk about anything. There would have been an ease there going on. And again, you see that this multiple conjunction falls in the second house, which is the house of, family, also self-esteem, also indulgences of any kind, so including food. So this is kind of a very easy breezy healing sort of energy as well. You also see that with respect to the ascendant, we have Jupiter and Mars falling in the ascendant. So this is actually a positive aspect to have in the composite chart, because this basically shows there's a lot of direction to this relationship. Both of them would have felt like they're going somewhere together. Jupiter is, of course, the great benefic, the planet of opportunities, and Jupiter and Mars are friends. So both of these planets are getting a boost here, although it's also falling in Scorpio, which is not exactly a happy-go-lucky energy. It's also interesting, though, again, they do have the same ascendant. See, this is another potential sign of compatibility. Now, obviously, I haven't looked at transits, but generally in Vedic astrology, people don't recommend that you marry or get together with someone who has the same ascendant sign or the same moon sign, especially not both, because this basically means that you will be hit by the same transits at the same time. So it's something that will just add more pressure to our relationship, right? So if you, let's say, have the same ascendant and you're both going through, let's say, a Saturn through the ascendant transit, you're both going to be hit at the same time. So you're both going to be, going through your Saturn return and having a midlife crisis at the same time. So it's going to put double the pressure on the relationship, because it's like, there's nobody left to steer the vessel. And it's left unattended. Meanwhile, both of you are, going through your little midlife crisis. You know what I mean? So it's not a positive thing to have, although technically in of itself, it's not exactly a deal breaker. So just looking at the composite, there are some decent aspects here. And also, that's what I was going to say, because they have the same ascendant, this relationship impacts them very strongly for both of them, because they have each of their ascendants is conjunct the composite ascendant. It's also conjunct the composite Mars and Jupiter. So this clearly shows that this relationship was meant to be significant for both of them. But here again in the composite, we also see that Saturn is in the 4th house. So again, this would have emphasized some kind of emotional heaviness in this relationship, and probably again brought up a lot of unresolved childhood issues for both of them. Sorry about those noises. I don't know if you heard anything, but the cat was meowing and I had to take it out. Anyway. So yeah, this would have shown some heaviness going on here. And again, you see that the composite Saturn is conjunct Justin Bieber's planets in Aquarius. So clearly what you see here is that both of their horoscopes, their individual horoscopes, are very activated by the composite chart. So this shows, again, this chart would have been very impactful. So this relationship would have been very impactful on both of their lives, which, I mean, makes sense because they are married, and yeah. So there are rumors that they're going to get divorced, or I'm not sure if they announced the divorce or whatever, but it's like nothing is certain until it actually happens. So another thing though that I notice here is that the moon is really isolated. Now, bear in mind that the aspects that you see here are tropical aspects, so I'm not going to take all of these into account, because in the Vedic astrology tradition or theory, you're not supposed to consider, for instance, trines and sextiles. I do consider them sometimes, but, it depends on the full context. I mainly look for, more solid aspects like conjunctions and oppositions. And in this particular chart, you can see that actually the moon does not have any conjunctions or oppositions. So according to the tropical perspective, they have marked an opposition there because of the degrees. But considering the fact that the sun and the moon are in 2 separate signs and they are 7 degrees apart, that's too wide of an orb difference to, if let's say if the moon had been in like 3 degrees Cancer and the sun would have been in, let's say, 29 degrees, 59 minutes Sagittarius, maybe I would have taken that into account as an opposition, but just barely. I would have still mainly looked at it as not really an aspect, because you want to look at the signs mainly according to the Vedic tradition, and that's the one that I have seen the best results with, really. So the moon being isolated there, not getting any real supportive aspects. Well, wait, there is one supportive aspect, a minor one, which is Jupiter is aspecting the moon by 9th aspect. So again, in Vedic astrology, Jupiter aspects the 5th, the 7th, and the 9th houses from where it sits. So here we have Jupiter aspecting the moon by 9th. So it is a minor supportive aspect, all right? It's a little bit there, enough to keep it afloat, but not for long periods of time. So normally in long-term relationships, in long-term fulfilling relationships, you would want to see some kind of major conjunctions, at least involving the moon, especially positive ones, right? You would want to see like benefics, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter conjunct the moon, the sun conjunct the moon, even though the sun is technically a malefic, but sun-moon conjunction is a strong sign of compatibility, especially in the composite chart. So you don't see any of these happening here. On top of which, again, Saturn, let me see. So Saturn is not doing, well, Saturn again is aspecting Mars and Jupiter by 10th aspect, I think, 12th, yeah, 10th aspect. So again, this is a minor aspect, but again, the aspect to Mars and Jupiter is mostly a negative one, especially to Mars, because again, this would bring up these topics of Mars, Saturn, as I have mentioned when I said that Justin Bieber's Saturn is opposite her Mars, that it would bring up the same issues of control and incompatibility with respect to long-term goals and biorhythms and energy and all this stuff. So this would add to really a lot of frustration mostly. So it's really interesting because there are some really positive aspects here. You do have this triple conjunction in the second house. So that would have definitely added to why they got together in the first place, why there was probably some friendship going on, an ease there. But in the long term, there aren't enough compatibility signs to, sustain this whole thing. And last but not least, I also want to look at the more quote-unquote traditional Vedic placement test. It's called ashtakoot point matching, and they have a 22.5 points out of 36, which is above average. So the minimum would be 18. It is above average, but if you look at the more individual explanations of this compatibility, you do see some major incompatibility points. Like you see the fact that there is huge incompatibility with respect to intimacy, like I pointed out. So they have different yonis. Right, so he has a Chitra Nakshatra moon, and she has an Ashwini Nakshatra moon, which means that his yoni is tiger and hers is the horse, so that's really incompatible. This would have again brought a lot of disharmony within their emotional needs, within their intimacy generally, and how they express intimacy, and getting their needs met in general. The friendship score is pretty good as well, which is, again, in agreement with what I've seen in the composite chart and in their individual horoscope. So there's definitely an underlying friendship going on, and that's probably how it started. Again, you see massive incompatibility of temperament. So you have his nakshatra being a Rakshasa and hers being a Deva. So, as I have mentioned, Rakshasas are the demon nakshatras and the Devas are the godlike nakshatras. So, Rakshasas are said to be very harsh and, let me put it like this, kind of insensitive, aggressive, and the Devas are the softest, so they're the most understanding and the most quiet and easy breezy. So this would definitely show this huge incompatibility with respect to their temperaments. And again, this would point out that maybe he was too aggressive for her taste. Aggressive and unrefined, basically. What you do see... another thing is with the Varna compatibility, you see that they have 0 out of 1, a maximum of 1. So the Varna compatibility refers to how well these two people can work together. And it's interesting because, again, this goes hand in hand with their inharmonious Saturn-Mars contacts, both in chart interaspects as well as in the composite chart. The fact that they have harsh aspects between Saturn and Mars would definitely suggest that they don't work well together, as well as the fact that they have the Sun-Mars opposition. The Sun-Mars opposition, as I have explained, really is, personally, I consider the Sun-Mars hard aspects to be the biggest deal breaker, one of the biggest deal breakers in general, and they only lead to conflict and constant friction, because it just shows that they have completely different views of where they want to get in life and what they want to do and how they go about achieving their goals, basically. You do see, like, with respect to innate attraction towards each other, they have a score of 1 out of 2. Not bad, all right? So there was definitely some attraction going on. You have seen that with the Mars-Venus opposition, and some other aspects that they have also with the Mars opposition that would definitely lead to attraction as well, but there's also a lot of friction going on at the same time. You also see that comfort, prosperity, and health gets a 1.5 points out of 3, which again is not great, not terrible, right? Just barely over the minimum. So there are some compatibility points. You see that also the progeny or nadi compatibility is really good. They get a maximum. This means that if they would have chosen to have kids together, they probably wouldn't have had issues conceiving. Probably. Of course, to see issues conceiving, you also want to look at individual horoscopes to see if everything is in order there. But with respect to their compatibility together as a couple, there would have been no issues with the kids, if they decided to breed. And you do see, interestingly, that you have Bakut compatibility is 7 out of 7, which is constructive ability, constructivism, society, and couple. So this is interesting because, even though they do not work well together, they actually can get good results together when it comes to their social impact. Now, again, this probably cancels each other. These two things probably cancel each other out, because if they can't work well together and they can't be harmonious together, then they're probably not going to lead to a constructive impact on society at large. So yeah, this is pretty much what I can see with respect to this entire compatibility analysis. So I hope you have enjoyed it as usual, and if you have, don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course comment in the comment section with any thoughts you have on this topic, or maybe suggestions for future topics that you would like me to cover. And also, if you're interested in a private reading, you can check out the video description. I will leave my contact information there, and you can email me for further details. Also, check out the membership options. If you are interested in more details, you can listen to the introduction part where I talk about memberships, and or also click on the join button underneath any of my videos. And also, last but not least, if you're interested in tarot, check out the tarot channel that I will be linking in the video description, as well as in the pinned comments. And if you're interested in tarot, check it out. Maybe subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. All right. Thank you for listening.